You may think analog mixers are completely dead these days, but this 1980s mixer has eliminated so many plugins, it's completely simplified my workflow, extended my interface, and it's even changed the way that I track drums. Now, most modern studios are built around a DAW, an interface, and mine was too for a while, but I knew I wanted to upgrade my interface and I wanted to do it in a way that was just a little bit more unique. So last year I picked up this 1982 TEAC M30, and honestly I got it because I thought it looked really cool. But it quickly began replacing so many things in my studio. It's pretty much fundamentally changed how I track instruments. It's changed the way that I record drums, and it's even given me the coolest fuzz bass. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So today I want to show you guys exactly how I use this mixer, not so much as a nostalgia piece, but as a practical extension of my modern setup. So in this studio, I'm using a Claret 2 pre, which only has 2 inputs. So that means I'm constantly plugging and unplugging cables. I'm always adjusting gain. And I was even using plugins, kind of like Band-Aids, to just fix certain issues that I was having, which we'll talk more about here in just a moment. Now, the obvious solution would have been to just upgrade the interface. I was already using an 18i20 for drums, but even that would not have solved all of the issues, and it certainly wouldn't have looked as cool. Now, the first thing we need to understand is exactly what a mixer is doing. So at its core, it's taking a bunch of inputs and it's summing them to a stereo left and right. Now, as the tracks are going through the mixer, we have the ability to mix them together so we can get a balance here with our faders. We can pan the instruments or the sounds across the stereo space. Well, I can add a little bit of top end here on the mic with EQ, because we can EQ things. A lot of mixers, you can send stuff off and have effects put on the tracks. You can bust things together. The consoles back in the day were very elaborate, and that's because that's how people mixed. They didn't have the DAW that we have today. So in this example, this mixer has 8 channels. I can consolidate those channels to the 2 inputs on my Claret 2 pre. Now, if you notice, everything on my mixer is panned either hard left or hard right, and that is because channels that are panned hard will only take up 1 output. So in my setup, channels pan hard left are going into the first input on my interface, and then channels that are pan hard right go into the second input. And this is basically how I use the M30 as an extension of my interface, because I can dictate what channels are going to which inputs. Now, you might think I still have to adjust the gain on the interface, but because these mixers have built-in preamps, I can just set my gain knob on the interface to 0 and strictly gain stage based off of the faders on the mixer. Now, one of the biggest issues I was having with my interface was related to gain. I could not get enough gain to my microphones, in particular my dynamic mics, but even my condenser mic that I use all the time, I had to crank the gain all the way up on the interface, and I would still have to throw an additional 10 or 20 dB through a plugin just to get enough signal. And obviously that adds a tremendous amount of noise. So the thing with the M30 is, not only do I think the preamps sound better, but it's even boosting the signal more. And if you really needed to, you could even stack the preamps with the M30, with the interface, and then you get like double the gain. Now, this wouldn't be a video of mine if I didn't break the rules somewhere. Now, on the back of these mixers, there's typically 2 inputs. You have a line input and a mic input, and then you can toggle on the front of the M30 or on the face of the M30. There's a switch, and you can toggle between the mic line and the line input. Now, what's really special with this mixer is channels 7 and 8 actually have 1/4 inch mic lines as opposed to the standard XLR. So obviously, because this was so convenient, I had to plug in my guitar. Now, what's happening is the mic input is expecting a very low level signal. So when you plug a guitar into it, the pickups are so much hotter, so it basically just creates analog fuzz. And it's really, really cool on the bass because it retains all of the low end. Now you can't talk about these old mixers without at least mentioning the EQ. So not only am I extending the inputs, but I'm also able to EQ each channel strip before it reaches the interface. Now a really cool thing with this mixer and a lot of mixers in general is you have the ability to switch between pre and post. So if you have an EQ setting dialed in that you really like, but you don't want to use it for a particular instrument, you can just switch that to pre and it will bypass that channel strip and just send the signal in clean. So that way you don't have to make a ton of adjustments. Now with this mixer, I have 3 EQ adjustments that I can make. There's 2 semi-parametric EQs, which means that I can adjust the frequency, and then there's 1 fixed high shelf. So I absolutely love just being able to physically turn knobs and dials. It definitely helps remove the temptation to overthink things, because you're really just committing to the sound earlier on. Funny enough, I actually picked up a second M30 just so that I could record drums through it. Now obviously the way I'm using this is just to alleviate a lot of what I'm doing in the DAW. I can record EQ on the way in, but you can also drive each channel strip to give a natural saturation to the sound, and it's really easy to do with drums because they're so much louder, but you can get a little bit of breakup and it just helps glue everything together. The preamps on these old school mixers sound really cool. They definitely have a different character than that of like an interface. But the best part is, depending on how many mics I'm sending through the M30, I can consolidate that to a stereo left and right, which makes for a much more simplified mixing experience. So I'm genuinely curious what your guys' thoughts on this are. Would you rather go and pick up a modern interface or try experimenting with an old school analog mixer? For me, it started off as something that I picked up really just as a collectible, has now really turned into a piece that I use every single day in my studio. I even send my turntable through it so that I can EQ records as I'm listening to it. Not the most practical thing, but it is a really fun listening experience. So hopefully this video has inspired someone out there. As always, I appreciate you guys for hanging out, and I'll see you on the next one.